Well,
Good evening, everyone. We'll just wait a few minutes as people come into the meeting. I'll just give you a few seconds, and then I'm going to start with an acknowledgement of country. I'll introduce my interlocutor tonight, who is Robert Gay, and then we'll get started on talking tonight about the Baden-Baden Easter Festival, not just tonight, also this morning for Robert in the Northern Hemisphere. So I'm going to start with the acknowledgement of country. In the spirit of reconciliation, Limelight Arts Travel acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. I am going to stop sharing our title screen so that Robert and I can better see one another and you can better see Robert. It is my great pleasure this evening to be chatting with Robert Gay. I almost feel like you require no introduction, Robert, but that's a cop-out. So I will just say that Robert is already known to many of you as a very prominent music history educator here in Sydney, but he has also for many years been invited to deliver lectures in other parts of Australia. He regularly addresses his very faithful audience, of whom I have been one, at the Centre for Continuing Education at the University of Sydney, but also the Wagner Society in New South Wales. And he's also been a speaker for organisations such as the Australian Society for Decorative and Fine Arts. So Robert is a very experienced tour leader. He has designed and led more performing arts and music history tours than I suspect he cares to enumerate now, but it is such a pleasure to be chatting with you this evening, Robert. Thank you for making time for us in the northern morning.
yes, fantastic. Thanks, Kathleen. Lovely.
So before we get started talking about the Baden-Baden Easter Festival, Robert, I thought first I would let people know that they can use either the Q&A or chat functions to send a message through. It'll come through to me and I'll relay your questions to Robert at opportune moments. So please feel free to use either of those functions to get in touch with me and ask questions. But of course, if you have any further questions for Robert or for us about the program, you can also email them through to us at any time. Let's get right into it, Robert, because we only have about 3/4 of an hour to talk about what is a very exciting program. This tour is a new addition for us, a tour to the Baden-Baden Easter Festival.
Absolutely. It's exciting, I think, Kathleen. It was, it kind of came up almost accidentally because normally the start time is early. So, and of course it depends on Easter, so it moves about a bit. But it meant sort of having to leave in late March, so the tour begins in late March, and the last few days of March into April. And I've never done that before, and so it had never kind of occurred to me that would be a possibility. It was just great that the suggestion came up to have a look at it, and the program, astonishing. I just thought, this is actually, in a funny way, I'm thinking, maybe what one wants to do with music tours is festival programs because they are packed with interest. It's really wonderful, this program that for next year. But I was very surprised when I looked up when the Baden-Baden Easter Festival had begun. I was astonished. 2013. What? No, that can't be right. You think of the Salzburg Easter Festival, it goes way back. You know, it was set up in the 60s. There, of course, with all of these big festivals, they have a summer festival as well. And several times in my very early tours, we passed through Baden-Baden. We'd usually stay for 3 nights and see 2 performances. It was part of the summer festival. Right? You could always position, you know, to get 2 fabulous things and move on. I've never stayed before for a whole festival. And so this one of doing the Easter Festival, I thought, okay. And it's founded in 2013. I thought, that is very recent. And what's going on here? And it's incredibly complicated. And if you want to understand it, you really need to look it up online. But I'll give you a sort of a bit of an idea. What happened in 2013 is that Simon Rattle, Sir Simon Rattle, so a man I worked with when I was very young. I was 24, he was 16. He played the piano for an opera that I was singing in. Amazing. I reminded him of this at the X Festival a couple of years ago, and it was really, we just had such a great time catching up. But anyhow, so Simon decided, and I don't actually know why he took the Berlin Philharmonic out of the Salzburg Easter Festival, out of the, yes, he exited it, right? And he moved it to Baden-Baden. It's all a bit mysterious, this. I don't know whether there's a story behind the facts. Certainly doesn't tell you on the website anything of behind the scenes. But so this was the beginning of the Baden-Baden Easter Festival. And what is really odd is that this year, when we first think about doing the Baden-Baden Easter Festival, it coincides, and I looked up, what orchestras are going to play and everything, and fine. And then it coincides that next year, Kirill Petrenko, is taking the Berlin Philharmonic back to Salzburg, to the Salzburg Easter Festival, creating a gap in Baden-Baden. Now, the Baden-Baden crowd decided they needed to have, two orchestras. They could have, who knows how much lead-up time they had. Whether the fact that they've got two orchestras coming in, the Concertgebouw and the Mahler Chamber Orchestra, might have been, it's got a vague feeling that it might have been availability of dates or something like that. But it is brilliant, because to have two extraordinary, they're very, very different orchestras. So and we've got two young conductors who are going to be leading them. And so it's terribly exciting. The Concertgebouw Orchestra dates way back to Mahler's time. It was founded in 1888. And in Mahler's early period, he goes to Amsterdam frequently to conduct his symphonies in Amsterdam. A real connection between Mahler. We're going to hear the Mahler Fifth. And that was, I know, for instance, the Mahler Fourth, a strange situation arose where Mahler went to Amsterdam. And when he got there, he found out he was going to conduct the symphony twice. It's a short symphony, the Fourth Symphony. And he conducted it before the interval. He wrote a letter to Alma saying, this is very strange, but here I'm conducting my Fourth Symphony before the interval, and I'm conducting it again after the interval. That's actually a terribly clever thing to do with a brand new work, because first time around, you don't know how it goes. Second time around, you go, oh yes, and this, I kind of know.
You listen.
Yeah, you listen in a different way. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant. And that makes the Mahler connection. And we've got a Mahler symphony in our program, as well as a great Bruckner symphony. So so that's the Concertgebouw. It's been, I had to look up the royal thing because it always intrigued me a bit. Why suddenly, I always knew it as the Concertgebouw Orchestra, and suddenly it turns into the Royal Concertgebouw. And that was apparently on the 100th anniversary. So in 1988, from 1988, they decided to have Royal. So it's now correctly the RCO, the Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra. One of the great orchestras of the world, right? Just absolutely marvelous. And with it, the Mahler Chamber Orchestra. Now, 2 years ago, when we were at X, the Mahler Chamber Orchestra played for a premiere the new Picture a Day Like This, the George Benjamin opera. And it was the Mahler Chamber Orchestra in the pit. And Penny and I went before the tour began. We were there. I was there one night early, and Penny and I we got a ticket looking down into the we could hardly see the stage, but could see the orchestra. This orchestra was something. This was, I thought, wow, this is a fantastic thing. And so to have the very big, the robust Royal Concertgebouw teamed with a chamber orchestra that is cutting edge is very, very exciting. And then we've got the two new conductors. We've got two young conductors. Klaus Mäkelä, who is due in 2027, in September 2027, Klaus Mäkelä is going to become the chief conductor of the Concertgebouw Orchestra, Royal Concertgebouw. He is at the moment 29, so he'll be 31. This is very, very early. And in the same month, in the same year, so September 2027, he will become chief conductor or musical director of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. I think this guy, they seem to think he's very talented.
They do.
Yeah. I've seen him quite a few times, oddly enough, on tours, because he's also got the Philharmonie, the Paris, the Orchestra de Paris, that plays in the new Philharmonie in Paris. So I've seen him several times, and also I think we had him. Yes, we had him in the Aix-en-Provence. So it was sort of like he's around, but he's very young, 29, and he is sort of like taking the world by storm, I think you have to say, getting Chicago Symphony and Concertgebouw. Wow. With the Mahler Chamber Orchestra, we have another young conductor who's conducting. We have 3 concerts actually by each, right? Mm-hmm. So we've got 3 Concertgebouw events and 3 Mahler Chamber Orchestra events. And this young conductor, woman, Joana Mallwitz. Joana Mallwitz, she's getting on actually. She's 37. I don't know, coming to the end of her. Right, no, she is stunning. I have just seen her for the first time in Berlin. She's got an orchestra, it's her own orchestra now. It's called the Konzerthaus Orchestra, Berlin. And we saw her on the tour that I've just finished. We started in Berlin. We did Berlin, Leipzig, Dresden, Munich. And in Berlin, Joana Mallwitz, she conducted an absolutely stunning concert. She's wonderful to watch. She's tall, slim. She has the longest arms. She has long arms that seem to be twice as long as they should be. She is so beautiful the way she conducts. There's a difference between men and women conducting, and men never go for that gentle sort of soft look. Think of Simone. Just think of Simone. It's a different style. They're getting the same result, but in a kind of different way. And she was, you could not take your eyes off her. And the orchestra, she's got her own orchestra. They've just released their first CD, Kurt Weill Symphonies. Likely you go, okay, so Kurt Weill Symphonies, that was a surprise. And she's got such terrific ideas of what she's doing with that orchestra in Berlin. On that tour, that concert was the hardest to get tickets for, because all the Berliners are going to the Konzerthaus.
That's interesting. They're in the know.
That's for tourists. It's not exactly for tourists, and of course, but it's international. People flooding in. Whereas with this Konzerthaus orchestra, she is putting it on the map locally, and people are following her. She gives astonishing talks. Apparently, we didn't go to the pre-concert talk, but she gives a talk before each performance. She's got that audience in the palm of her hands, in the same way that she has the orchestra in the palm of her hand. She is amazing.
So with those 2 conductors and those 2 different ensembles, is it a case that you've got the kind of expansive, you said robust, great word, Concertgebouw with Mäkelä, but that the Mahler Chamber Orchestra and that pairing with Mallwitz suits better the kind of grace or elegance, intimacy of her style. Is that what you think is happening?
I think so. The thing is, if you look at the musical program, it's interesting because Mallwitz doesn't conduct that first concert that we're going to, the Mahler Chamber Orchestra with Hélène Grimaud. That will be the Mahler Chamber Orchestra without a conductor.
Yes, I noticed that.
Did you notice?
I did. Your notes say that Hélène is conducting from the piano, leading from the piano.
I thought that too until I looked more into this. No, the Mahler Chamber Orchestra does not need a conductor. They have two concertmasters. They play as a perfect ensemble. They come from all over. I wrote some things about Mahler. There's 45 musicians. That's an absolutely peak number, perfect number of musicians from 20 different countries. They come from they're handpicked.
It's
extraordinary. And they have two concertmasters. Whether we might have both concertmasters, I'm not sure. That won't be really because the names are not familiar to me. So, but
you mean one for the Brahms and one for the Schumann?
No. Well, look, actually, that could also happen, but it is possible, yes, that they might split between the two. But the thing is that Hélène Grimaud, she is an absolute powerhouse. I've only seen her once. I saw her, where was I? In Bordeaux, in the wonderful auditorium in Bordeaux. Hélène Grimaud played late Brahms. It was staggeringly good. And I'm sure many of you who are listening will have heard Hélène Grimaud more frequently than I have. But I became a huge fan instantly. I thought, wow. And the thing is, if you've got an absolute top pianist and a crack small orchestra, you can do it without a conductor. You don't need a conductor because the conductor is trying to keep a big orchestra together. And, these people will have rehearsed and they'll have got it absolutely precise. To play the Brahms Piano Concerto No. 1 without a conductor is quite a feat. Okay. That is amazing because that's the really big one. The bum 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 bum. You kind of think it cries out for a conductor. They'll do it without a conductor. How exciting is that?
Yeah.
And then, of course, the Schumann Piano Concerto is ideal to be done without a conductor. I saw it once in, where were we? In Cologne. In Cologne. Beautiful Philharmonie that's sort of almost tucked under the cathedral, sort of to the side. And the Radu Lupu, who played very, very rarely in the late, he's unfortunately gone now, but in his late years played very, very rarely and only very specially. He played with the orchestra, sitting back in a chair, and he didn't look at the keyboard once. He was just looking and nodding at the players, these young players in the orchestra, who looked at him as though he was God sitting playing the Schumann Piano Concerto. They just couldn't, they were smiling like they were going to explode. And that rapport, there was a conductor there, I don't even remember who it was, because it was the pianist and orchestra. And so it's a perfect one to be done without and it's a gentle work. It's not a big, massive thing like the Brahms No. 1. So that's really something to look forward to. I think that Mahler Chamber Orchestra. Jumping down, since we're talking about the Mahler Chamber Orchestra, let's go to the War Requiem.
Yeah.
Again, couldn't be better for the chamber orchestra. Because what you need for the Britten, you need full orchestra, you need a small orchestra, you need 3 soloists, conductor. It's broken up. So you've got big chorus, big orchestra, small orchestra, and then the 3 soloists. The soprano who only sings with the big choir and the big orchestra, she's singing the Latin text, right, of the Requiem. Right. So that's all. That's for the soprano, and then the two men, of course, they always must be one German and one English, because it's representing the soldiers. It's the soldiers who meet and who in the final piece speak to each other and say, "You are the enemy who killed me, my friend." They speak to each other in the final piece, you know. Incredible thing. It's an incredible work. It's one of the great works of the 20th century, without any doubt. It would be in the top 10, 12 works. 1962 it comes from. It's a long way back.
Yeah.
And also, they haven't yet announced the baritone. They've announced the tenor.
Noticed that.
And tenor, Mr. Bogdan, he's got a strange name, Bogdan
Volkov.
I've
got it in front of me.
Volkov is the. We saw him on the Barcelona to Paris tour. We saw him in Madrid singing in an unknown Rimsky-Korsakov opera, and he was sensational. Right? Really wonderful actor, wonderful singer. And they, at the moment, they haven't announced the baritone, but mind you, it's next year. You know, it's not about to happen. But and then the third, I think, almost the most exciting, is that the Mahler Chamber Orchestra will be the orchestra for Lohengrin.
I saw that.
And Lohengrin is actually one of my favorite Wagners. It's certainly my favorite early Wagner. It's the last of the run, you know, before he has to flee from Dresden and loses his position and all that sort of stuff, and becomes a sort of outlaw for quite a long period. Lohengrin is a wonderful opera. I absolutely love it. I could not, if it had been one of the other early ones, I would have thought fine, but Lohengrin is special. And we're going to have one of the great Lohengrins singing. So this guy is hard to say, Piotr Bechowa. It looks like Bechowa, but it's Bechowa because of the struck through L, which makes it a W. So he's Piotr Bechowa. Really top of the line. He's a top Tannhäuser, he's a top Lohengrin. In the peak. I think he's probably, and some of you listening may know, maybe he's already done it. But I would say in the coming few years, he'd probably make the move to possibly, I would suggest probably Parsifal first, and then maybe the Tristan and Walter in the Master Singers. Not sure. But he's certainly he's the man to hear singing Lohengrin, and we've got a very good, very very highly respected soprano with that double-barreled Willis Sørensen, Rachel Willis Sørensen, who I've heard once way back. I've been racking my brains trying to remember where I heard her once. An impressive voice, and she's just recently won the Beverly Sills Award for top, leading young soprano, sort of upcoming. She's been upcoming for a while, so she's established, very well established. She'd be a great Elsa. So that's the Brahms Schumann piano concertos with the Britten War Requiem and the Lohengrin are the three Mahler Chamber Orchestra works. And then to Mr. Mäkelä, Klaus Mäkelä, a very different sort of conductor, very dynamic, very engaging. Hugely liked. The thing about the Chicago job, when he got the Chicago job, the word was that never before had a new chief conductor had so many votes from the musicians. Never before. And he was in his late 20s when he did that audition, and he got the job. He's now appearing with the that's actually the Chicago job, but he's coming with the Concertgebouw. He's also obviously made a big impression on them. So with the Concertgebouw, a bit surprising, but then when I looked into it, not as surprising as I thought, was that we're going to have the Concertgebouw playing for the Matthew Passion. That's not what you'd expect these days.
Mm.
You'd expect an early music group, but that tradition goes back a long way. They've been doing it, and I think we'll see just simply a reduced number of the top players from the Concertgebouw playing for the Matthew Passion. That's my guess, because you don't need a full big orchestra, and it would have the wrong sound if you had the big orchestra. It would not be right. So I would imagine that's going to be just 45 players from. They'll probably match the chamber orchestra number and have 45 players from the Concertgebouw. That's my guess. I mentioned the Mahler Fifth in the next concert there, so we hear the Concertgebouw that would play all those, not all of them, but many of the Mahler symphonies. Probably in the end, by the time Mahler died, they would have played the Fifth. Anyhow, and then I have to say, I love the Bruch Violin Concerto. You're not supposed to say that, actually, but I hope many of you listening will also love the Bruch Violin Concerto. I think it's marvelous. I mean, Max Bruch is a composer who you could actually, I was almost tempted to leave him out of my sort of survey and then I thought, oh, no, I have to, and then I thought, oh, of course, the Violin Concerto. Absolutely love the Violin Concerto. And we've got this, talk about young people, Daniel Luzakovic. He's going to be 24 when we see him, but he's the one that got a contract with Deutsche Grammophon. I think it was DG. When he was 15.
It's the Wunderkind tour, really, isn't it?
An exclusive contract with Deutsche Grammophon, age 15. You can't tell from his surname. I looked him up and thought, oh, Swedish. I wasn't expecting Swedish. Daniel Luzakovic. Anyhow, he'll be something to see. And that will be a sensational concert with the Violin Concerto, of course, first, and then the big Mahler Symphony after the interval.
Robert, can I ask? Robert, this is a personal question. I apologise to the listeners who may know the answer. Why is one not supposed to say one likes the Bruch Violin Concerto?
Oh, because it's too popular.
One of those.
Everybody likes it. So what's the big deal? Well, I think there comes a point where that goes full circle and you say, well, I'm prepared to stand up and say, I think it's fabulous. I'm sorry. If that's not the thing to say, too bad. Because I can't help loving it when I hear it.
It's so true, isn't it?
In theory, perhaps, but no, it's fabulous.
A work of beauty. Excellent. Thank you for clearing that up. I'll put it on my listening list this week. But you are, I think,
you're my favourite, of course, Bruckner.
Yeah.
Bruckner. And there's the Bruckner 8. They're being a bit cagey about whether they play the first version or the revised version, because it's the one that was rejected by Hermann Levy just after Levy and Nikisch had done a fabulous job with the 7th. Bruckner 7 is the only one that nobody mucked around with. It went as it was written, and it stayed as it was written. There's no different versions of the 7th. Then Bruckner, absolutely thrilled, writes the 8th, sends it to Hermann Levy, and he sends it back and says, this is rubbish. I mean, all nervous breakdown time. Bruckner had pretty much close to a nervous breakdown because the man who had supported him just, had sort of kind of turned on him, and he kind of fixed it in inverted commas. Which version we'll hear? I have a suspicion we'll hear the revised version. I'm just trying to think. The Concertgebouw is likely to have always played the revised version. It's the established one. But Simone, when we were doing we went in the CCE courses, where we came through the Bruckner 8th, and I sort of thought, no, I think there are some advantages to the revised version, and I thought that's probably what. But no, Simone, she has a rule. She plays always the first version, so she played the first version of the Bruckner, and I thought that my pity I wasn't there to hear it because I was already had left on tour. But yeah, so the Bruckner 8 is a great symphony. It's a wonderful symphony. It's the last completed symphony because the ninth, also wonderful, he left it without the finale. He tried desperately to finish the symphony, but in the end he left it with a slow movement. So the ninth goes big opening movement, then scherzo, and then the slow movement. But actually is perfect as it is perfect in its unfinished form because the slow movement ending it, it's like Mahler actually, where was it? Number 3, I think, is the first time he ends with a huge slow movement. And Bruckner does it with the ninth. He didn't intend to because there's lots of sketches for the finale, but he had such a complex idea of what the finale could be if he could only bring it off. That he just, in the end, he was too ill to finish it. So anyhow, that's talking about the ninth. But the 8th Symphony, oh, wow. Royal Concertgebouw playing the Bruckner 8, fantastic. So that's the, now we come perhaps the most exciting announcement, which some of you will have seen. It's gone up online now. But Elena Garancha, who was going to do the recital, has withdrawn. This is just quite recent, maybe 10 days ago or something. She's withdrawn for reasons unspecified and has been replaced instantly replaced by the great Asmik Grigorian, who is the reigning soprano in Europe and the world as we speak. Nobody is lauded as much as Asmik Grigorian. The thing that we are going to get a recital of Tchaikovsky and Rachmaninoff songs from Asmik Grigorian. It's a pre-prepared program. It would be one of these things. Garancha was doing it as well. Look, we saw Garancha in X, and the next time she was going to Barcelona. She's doing the same recital in Barcelona. So, you take the new recital around. This one, she's got her pianist. It's ready to go. They obviously got in touch with her, said, "Are you by any chance available?" She said, "I'm there. I'm in. Count me in, and I'll sing approximately Rachmaninoff." And she's Lithuanian, fabulous singer. We just on the tour that ended in Paris, the Barcelona to Paris, we saw her sing all 3 roles in Puccini's Trittico. She reordered. I mean, this is how powerful she is. She said, "I'll sing the operas in different order because you've got Trittico, the triptych. It would normally be Il Tabarro, Suor Angelica, Gianni Schicchi. She did Gianni Schicchi, so she could sing Lauretta O mio bambino caro as a warm-up. Then she did the heavy one, which is the Tabarro, where she negotiated it honestly. You have to take your hat off to her. She got through a big sing so easily. This is at the Paris Opera, the biggest opera house in Europe. This is not just mucking about or doing it in a small, safe place. The biggest place. She did the Giorgetto in Tabarro, and then she ended with the Suor Angelica. Just heartbreaking. At the end, as the opera ended, the entire audience, like that, got to their feet. The entire audience, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, got to their feet, cheered like they were crazy people.
She certainly looks, from the images I've seen photos of her, she looks like she has, I don't know, flair. Would that be the word? I mean, she just looks like an incredible human being with an amazing energy.
She is, and she brings something. Those 3 performances, particularly the Giorgetto, was not a traditional, was not how it's usually done. And also with the Suor Angelica, you'd think she might have been focusing herself. She wasn't. She was the put upon. She was absolutely that sort of destroyed person who's been put into a convent are so touching, but the audience got it. They said, "We don't, you know." She let fly with a couple of bits, but that's what she does. She conserves. I saw her in Don Carlos in Vienna on another tour. We finished up with the Don Carlos. She sang Elizabeth, and the big aria at the end. I was thinking, I don't know. I think she'll have her work cut out. But what she does is she saves and saves and saves, and then boom, then she lets fly. So she's not wearing out the voice unnecessarily. She's it's almost like coasting, beautiful coasting, you know. And then when it's needed, then, because she's as slim as all get out, you think this is not a traditional big soprano look. She looks fabulous. She's a stunning actress. What's not to like? Well, I can't believe she's going to sing.
You mentioned, Robert, the power of her performance in a huge venue like the Paris Opera, but can you tell us a little bit more about the Festspielhaus, where I think is that the case that all of your performances are at the Festspielhaus?
Yeah, look, strangely enough, the Festspielhaus in Baden-Baden, that I had to look that up when they built it. Where did I write that? There it is, Festspielhaus, built 1998, again, quite recently. A dual purpose. As I say, I've been there several times. I've heard opera there, I've heard concerts there, I've heard recitals there. And it's really a box, it's a cube. It's got, apparently, according to everything I looked up, it's the biggest stage in Europe. It's bigger than the stage at the Paris Opera. And it's just open. There's a box that goes round behind it like that. And I saw the thing that was really impressive. I saw Netrebko and Schrott singing the Don Giovanni there, staged Don Giovanni, full stage, you know, very big stage. But of course, you can make a stage different sizes and bringing in wooden backings and things like that. I heard lovely Joyce Di Donato singing Ariodante there, you know, much reduced sort of space with small Handel orchestra. And so for the recital, I imagine there'll be just, you know, she'll be backed in. And of course, a backing like that, a wooden backing, I mean, the wall way back is also a good projector of sound, because the sound's got nowhere to go except out to the auditorium. But with an extra bit of wrapping around, which I imagine they'll do with the piano and the singer, it will just focus it that little bit more. And of course, you know, I mean, the combo of Tchaikovsky, Rachmaninoff, wow. Tchaikovsky, fabulous songs before the interval, Rachmaninoff after the interval, brilliant. What was it?
Can I come?
Yes. Come on, yes. You're most welcome.
So that's the Baden-Baden festival that we've gone through. But of course, your tour also then travels on to Munich to get some further performances.
Exactly. We had only 7 performances. 7 worked well for Baden-Baden, and also it's enough time to spend in Baden-Baden. It's a lovely little town, but it's a small town. As I say, I've only ever passed through doing 3 nights in Baden-Baden. Gorgeous, you know. 9 nights is different, and of course we have some excursions to fill things out, and there's a lovely wine excursion. Usually I'm finding these days the wine excursions become really one of the draw cards. Apparently Riesling, I didn't know Reblanc. Many of you listening.
I didn't either.
I didn't know Reblanc wine district, but apparently it's near Baden-Baden and it's famous for its Riesling. So that's great. And just while I mentioned the excursions, we've got an excursion to Speyer. Can't wait to see the Speyer, the Romanesque, fabulous Romanesque cathedral in Speyer, which I saw only once on a very, very early tour. On a Mozart tour, we came through and just stopped and saw the cathedral and went on. I have wanted to go back ever since. And here was the opportunity, because Baden-Baden is near, we've got Strasbourg, lovely town of Strasbourg across the Rhine in Alsace, and then Speyer, and then the wine trip into the countryside. Oh, and a place that I don't know, that this was, this is Rastatt. Rastatt was built from scratch, beginning of the 18th century, in the first decade of the 18th century, to replace, Baden-Baden had been flattened by the French, right? Flattened in the wars that Marlborough was involved in as well, late 17th into early 18th century. Baden-Baden was razed to the ground pretty much. And so everything in Baden-Baden dates from the early 19th century. 1810 was when Baden-Baden came back as a sort of spa, and then the casino was built and all that. But Rastatt was the replacement Margravel seat. And apparently is excellent, and will make a very good, quite close excursion. Because with a big musical program, you don't want excursions that are too massive. You know, I think we've got one that's on a free day. I haven't written that down here, but I think one of them, perhaps the one where we go to Strasbourg, is on
It
a
is
day.
Strasbourg. There's no, yeah, it is that.
You don't have to return. Yeah. Also in Strasbourg, you will be offered the most enormous plate of food you ever saw in your life. Choucroute, which would actually feed a family of 6.
Yes.
And it will be given to you individually. I think what we'll do in advance, now that I've warned you, is to say we'll get Claudia to order half servings, because this is enough. This will bring, this would be lunch for a person who lives in Strasbourg. They're big people.
We had someone from Strasbourg stay with us as a house guest once, and I just felt that he was hungry the entire time. We clearly were giving him enough food, but we should tell people that yes, Claudia will do half portions, because otherwise it's a discouraging factor.
Most people, don't need a massive plate like that full of meat and cabbage and the whole bit for lunch.
Oh yeah, the Alsatians. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? So yes, the time in Baden-Baden is quite focused.
So 7, we've got 7 performances in Baden-Baden, and then we needed a couple of extras. We just ranged around, and the thing that cried out, of course, was the Parsifal in Munich. With a group at the Munich Opera Festival, we saw the Parsifal when it was new. Baselitz, he's this fabulous artist I'd never heard of. He was having his 80th birthday celebrations, so it's 7 years ago. Baselitz did the designs for the new Parsifal, which had Kaufmann and Nina Stemmer. Nina Stemmer's back, but Kaufmann not. So that will be one. They're wonderful designs, beautiful designs. The Macbeth is simply the work. It's nice to have a Verdi. I mean, a Verdi Wagner. And of course, to have 2 Wagners, to have the Lohengrin and Baden-Baden, and then the Parsifal, wonderful. But Verdi Macbeth, the singers didn't leap out to me. I wasn't sort of terribly familiar, but it's on. We'll go and see it and see what we think, because it's the revised version of Macbeth is a good piece. Comes from the mid-60s when it was done. Would have been done in French for Paris. It's the Paris revision, but then translated back into Italian. It would not be. It's not the original version of Macbeth, the 1847. That's very rarely done, and if it is done, it's always signalled that they're doing the first version. I've still have never seen the first version of it. It's done occasionally here and there, but. This will be the revised version. So that's, I think that's quite a lot of, how are we going with our time?
We're actually getting quite close to the time that we wanted to work to, Robert. I've got a question for you. I'll ask you, and then I'll give you a moment to think. Just tell you something that's in the in the chat. So I'm putting you on notice, Robert, that if you could give us the 3 things you're most excited about on the tour program, I'm putting you on notice for that. But while your brain is, while things are percolating, we've had a comment in the chat, and if anyone else would like to put through a comment, please do, from Stuart and Sue, who've said, talking of Mäkelä, we heard him conducting the Concertgebouw in the Mallwitz at the Mahler Festival in May. Fantastic performance, but icing on the cake was his wonderfully engaged but self-effacing interview about it immediately afterwards. Talk about energy. So
nice, no, excellent.
Modest.
Yeah, lovely.
It seems like it's a lineup
So,
of younger but mature, professionally mature but younger conductors and performers on the tour. It's pretty impressive.
Yep.
And
there'll be more. I mean, now that everywhere on the last tour we had 3 female conductors. There were going to be 4, but Mirga Rashinta Tyler, for some reason, didn't conduct the Katja Kabanova. I don't know what was behind that, but we had a man took over, a Czech man who conducted. But there were going to be 4 women on that tour that I've just finished, and we had 3. So the women are coming now more and more, and this gives a lot of variety, and it's also made it possible, for young women, and also. Mäkelä, in his own way, will have opened up the idea that you could have a chief conductor who's in his early 30s, rather than waiting to getting somebody in their 50s.
Yeah.
So I think that's all rather exciting. I've also I noticed something we didn't say with the excursions.
Yes.
That was talking about the composer connections. There's a theatre in Baden-Baden where Berlioz, Beatrice and Benedict was first performed. And then there's the connection with Baden-Baden for Clara Schumann. After Schumann's death, she moved they were in Dusseldorf around the death period, and she chose Baden-Baden. And she set up there with the children and lots of nannies, I think, because she took herself off on big piano tours. Where she is, of course, everybody said the equal of Liszt. Very different from Liszt, but the equal of Liszt. And
in terms of the extent of her touring.
Yeah, well, no, and also in her skills.
In general.
And so she was there, and of course, it's a tragic story. The 3, Robert Schumann, Clara Schumann, and Johannes Brahms. It brings me the end of it. Brahms alone in Vienna. Actually dying and writing to Clara, and then dashing to see her or to be at her funeral when she suddenly died. She was quite considerably older than he was, which was one of the reasons she gave for not taking Brahms on. But also she knew what being married to a composer was like. She'd had that, and she'd had it up to here, and she was not going to have that anymore, and certainly not any more children. She had a brood of children already that she was responsible for. All that was happening in Baden-Baden after the death of Schumann. And Brahms came as often as possible and stayed in this tiny little, it's called the Brahms house, but as far as I know, one of the things I looked up said he owned the house. I think that's not correct, but sometimes you come across wrong information. But certainly there's a little flat that they show you, a couple of rooms, where this big man stayed in these little rooms, and he would walk the way that we will walk from Baden-Baden it's basically a suburb now of Baden-Baden, but it was a separate village, as it were. There's a beautiful walk, absolutely lovely walk. It takes about half an hour to walk, and you walk up beside the stream, and you get to Lichtental, and that's where this flat is. And I find it a very, very moving experience, because this idea of this big, heavy man in these little rooms there because he has to be as near as he can be to Clara. So that's something special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we sign off, Robert, any final thing, a third?
I was supposed to pick three things.
Yeah, well, we could count two already, the Brahms story, but no, you may have three things.
Oh, no.
I'm not going to limit you.
With the musical things.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Three things that when you saw they were on the program, you thought, yes.
Okay, so I'm going with the War Requiem. This is a great choice for Easter, right? We've got Matthew Passion. I mean, that's a classic for Easter, obviously. And apparently the Concertgebouw has a tradition of doing one of the Passions or one of the big Bach works every Easter. So that would be special, but that would not be my reason to go. The Britten War Requiem, to hear that and to hear it played by the Mahler Chamber Orchestra, I would walk across hot coals to hear that. And also, I suspect, my guess is that the Lohengrin is going to be sensational for the Wagner lovers. I think that will be hard to beat. I'm looking forward to that more than the Parsifal, but then I've seen the Parsifal, and it's a kind of a different, mind you, around that time, very relevant Easter performance of the Parsifal when you think about it. Even although it's not a Christian opera at all. It's the Knights of the Round Table. All those guys are from King Arthur and the Round Table. You know, Parsifal is Sir Percival. Sir Percival from the not. It's a real twist and a bit of a con job by Wagner to turn that into a Christian work. It's kind of, he uses all the chalice and the spear. There's all sorts of things that make you think that it's Christian, but it's really sort of not. And of course, if you read the original German Parsifal, it is. Do not miss it. If you're a Wagner person, you have to read it's Gottfried from Eschenbach. Is it Eschenbach or is it Strasbourg? I always forget which one does the Tristan and which one does the Parsifal. Anyhow, the original German. It is sensational read, and you will not recognise Wagner's opera if you read it, especially when the women bring in the thing that the hot stone that cooks dinner. It's not the Holy Grail. It's nothing to do with chalices and Christ on the cross and blood in the no. It's a hot stone. It'll cook your dinner. All you have to do is think what you'd like. So if you would like an enormous choucroute, all you have to do is think, give me an enormous choucroute. And even on the tour, if you want an enormous choucroute, you can have one.
You can have one.
Because we can provide that. So that's the War Requiem, the Lohengrin, and
I have one more.
I'd be a bit inclined, I'd be a bit radical and go with Hélène Grimaud.
Lovely. Yeah, the Brahms and the Schumann.
That will be an amazing way to start. Yeah, I'll go with those three. That's
Robert, as always, I mean, you've sent me beautiful talking points and I've covered them in notes.
Oh, good.
Things that I have to go away and listen to, things to go away and look up. I'm sure everyone who's attended tonight and who will watch this video later is going to feel as enthused about the program as I am after talking with you. Thank you so much for making the time on your northern morning. I hope the day is not too humid or warm for you. Thank you so much for coming along, Robert.
Thanks, Kathleen. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Good night.